Hey guys, welcome back to Parkitect. In today's episode, we're going to be venturing off to Disaster Peaks. So this one, the poll that I set up a while ago, right after Kaiserberg. So Disaster Peaks is a disaster-driven amusement park, unmaintained, unclean, and unsafe. That said, the area is too good to pass up, and the existing rides aren't bad once fixed. Pull this park out of the gutter and turn it into a gem. I like this type of scenarios because it's like a destroyed theme park or amusement park. Yeah, kind of have to fix it. It's kind of a cool concept. The goals are, let's see here, park rating at 75%. That seems simple. Have a cleanliness rating of 80. Pretty good. 750 doesn't really ask that many guys. It's not a lot. No loan debts. Okay. Have an optional experience rating of 70. Okay. And then year 3, which we'll ignore. So let's go see what the park is. I already know what this park is because I've played it once before. But going in this round, it's the challenge of decorating it is going to be the fun part. So we already in the beginning get to see our first coaster. This is Maelstrom and Firestorm. It's a dueling launch steel coaster. Looks pretty cool. I would have to find a way to decorate this. I would have to think of something. So already off the bat, there's trash everywhere. Broken lamps and benches and vomit and trash of all sorts. So if I do trash, this shows me what's exactly trash. Yeah, there's lots of trash here. And from this distance, the park is pretty large. Yeah, there's a lot going on in this park. Oh, here's the entrance. Okay. So if I remember correctly, to fix my problem is to get rid of all the trash and fix all the benches and all that stuff. I'll figure that out when I start building. But let's go take a look at rides. So we have our typical carousel, Ferris wheel, teacups, wave swinger. Okay. Star shape. Ooh, that's a showing. Turbulorn, a wipeout. Ooh, we get a floorless right off the bat. I like that. Steel, yeah, of course, and then suspended. Oh yeah, we didn't even look at the suspended coaster, which is over here. I think it's called Hurricane. Yeah, Hurricane. So we get that. Train, yeah, we get a train ride, that's good. And then bumper boats, log flume, and paddle boats. The only thing I've noticed is that Hurricane needs a second train, so you probably have to edit a block break here. Same thing with Hurricane and Firestorm. You probably need to do a new type of block break. Or actually, no, you can run 2 trains, I think, right? Oh, yeah, you can. Okay, so maybe we'll run 2 trains and see what happens. Maybe bump up the price. Like, honestly, the price should be $12 right now for both of them. Let's see here. $12 should happen immediately. Same thing with this coaster is 12. The other strategies I would consider to doing is blocking off most of the park. So train the railroad shut off, cut path here. So we'll delete like this has to go, and then we'll stop path here. And then build the park from there and see how much money we get. But yeah, let's go look at quickly shop. Oh my gosh, I have like no shops. That's horrible. Okay, gotta research food. Scenery. Pretty sizable themes to mess with, except for space and fantasy, but this is enough to kind of build off of. My initial idea is to do a studio slash... No, it's like a studio... Yeah, it's a studio park. I want to do like a Universal type, Disney Studios type of thing. So, because if this is called Disaster Peaks, I think I'm going to call it Disaster Studios and build a studio of some sort. So I want to pull from Islands Adventure, Universal Studios, Hollywood and Orlando, and Disney Studios. So I think that is the objective here. So we're going to go build a studio park that is themed to disaster movies. This is going to be quite some fun, I think. So let's get this blockbuster moving. Okay, let's get going with the first couple, I don't know, buildings, things to set up for Disaster Peaks. So the first thing that worked on was getting rid of all the trash. So the trash was removed immediately, and I did that by pausing the game and deleting the path by hand. So that's the cheat way to do it, and so that's what I did. So the first area I wanted to do was reroute the railroad to kind of be more leveled and not be so crazy. And then off to the first building, and then this building is like a, what's it called? My first Art Deco building. So we are going to go pretty fast in this video because there's a lot of footage that I have to go through, so hold on tight. I want to try to explain things as quickly as I can, but if I miss a thing, I miss a thing. So the first building is going to be our first shop. This is a burger stand, so it's going to be called Hollywood Burgers. And this building is actually a knockoff of a building in Disney Hollywood Studios. I think it's one of the souvenir shops. I'm not really sure what it is, but it's Art Deco inspired. So I went for an Art Deco inspired building. Kind of copied I copied most of the picture, most of Disney Studios, whatever. So yeah, I'm just gonna build that building. I'm not really sure what the building's called, but this is my first attempt in Art Deco, and I think my attempt here was pretty good. So I'm using a lot of shapes. Shapes are very, very good for Art Deco, especially this. So I'm using cubes and cylinders, and I wanted to do this diagonal building a little bit and add a curb. So I did the border pieces, the highest ones, and then I added my own curb. And guests don't get to walk on it, so they don't kind of like bleed through the floor. But I wanted to give that extra definition of this is a street, this is a curb, this is a Hollywood / studio area. So that's basically the gist. And this first building actually basically got the juices flowing onto actually building the rest of the park, because I was really not sure how I was able to, you know, decorate this park's, I don't know. Disaster Peaks is a very large map, and I was very concerned on how much I would be able to fill. So I'm quite surprised that I was able to do it. And to give this map somewhat of a different theme than other builders, because Silver did a Four Corners harbor theme, so every harbor had a different theme to it. So you had American, you had, I think, Viking, and I can't remember the other ones. But I wanted to do a studio / park because the lake in the center of the park reminds me of Islands of Adventure. That's the first thing that popped in my head. And literally the cover for the depot looks like a studio, so that's kind of what I opted in for. So as we see, we jumped extremely ahead. I built additional 2 sound stages, and those actually house 2 flat rides, a Wipeout and a Teacup, so they're just covered. I just wanted to have rides to make money. Over here, I destroyed the first sound stage that I made. It was a very small one. I didn't like it, so I opted in to make a proper administration building for this studio. So Disaster Studios needs an actual administration. So this one's just a knockoff and a copy from Universal Orlando's version, because I found some old park maps, some concept art, and I just pulled it off. So this is like a stucco. No, it's just a stucco building, isn't it? Because it's like very LA. Again, I'm very used to this type of architecture because I live in the area. Because honestly, this is kind of like a California thing, is that you have stucco buildings and Adobe and some other, I don't know, it's just very Hollywood, LA-like. So it's just a very simple administration building. Nothing too fancy. And then we're jumping off to the next set of buildings, because since I built a street, I wanted to do some facade work to showcase that this is a working studio, and these buildings are not fully fledged out buildings, like in an actual set, or like Disney Hollywood Studios is a prime example because they have a couple streets that change. Same thing with Universal. Universal has the same type of aesthetic. So they have square warehouse buildings with like fancy facades on top of them. So I wanted to do the same here too. And I wanted to do some diagonal work again. So expect more diagonal building shenanigans from me for the next couple maps, because I think it's a fun way to kind of break up the grid, especially in this type of game, because Parkitect is very grid heavy, and breaking it up like this is actually fun. So This is going to be our movies and records building, which actually just houses a couple restaurants and I think an ATM inside. So this is like just one of our more bigger guest utility buildings. Nothing really too crazy for it. Yeah, so this is like another Art Deco building, a different style. I picked this one because it was a corner building, and I like the green and brown stripes on it. It's kind of very iconic. So I was very happy with the outcome of this building. Now, I'm not really sure why they have these decorational pieces coming from the top. I'm assuming it's just like gingerbreading. It's just something to catch the eye and catch the viewer. So it's like, come to this shop because it's fancy looking. Again, Art Deco is kind of like that thing. Then we jump ahead to a couple other buildings that I'm going to make little facades for. So we did this little brown one I did, and then doing a white one. And there's a pink one on the end, but you don't get me to see it because there's, again, a lot in this video. So we're just going to quickly go through it. But yeah, this is another example of sidewise diagonal building, which is fun. And I encourage you guys to try it too. It's a fun way to do it. And Art Deco is the prime example to do it because it's all square based. So I wanted this area to be a mix of Hollywood/harbor area. So that's why I have a harbor. It's a nice little walking area for guests to kind of chill. And then there's the street with the palm trees. And then we have our other side of our little building. Oh, yeah, there's the pink. So we actually jump super ahead. Sorry for my editing skills, but there was a lot to go through. And we're just going to jump ahead to Hurricane and do Amity Island. So this is going to be our Jaws area. This is going to be the entrance of Hurricane. So I want to do a green screen to suggest that we're still in a movie studio. And the station for the ride is another sound stage. So we're up to 3 sound stages so far. And I just wanted to make it a normal like little cottage and the word hurricane on it. And then kind of build a couple warehouses and barns and some other cottage-like buildings from Amity Island. I would say this is not my favorite area, but it works close enough. Yeah, I'm just going to quickly do all these little things. Most of these buildings are made of your normal walls, your spooky walls to your wooden walls, pillars, borders. You guys see me do this hundreds of times at this point. Now I'm going to take a book off of Silverette by just building a lighthouse as well at this helix. I think he built it on the other helix, I think, actually. I don't remember. I haven't watched the video. But I want to build a lighthouse because it is Amity Island. It needs a lighthouse. And I was going to do some rocks. And I also wanted to try out a cool little water feature where the coaster, when the coaster comes near the water would come off, like splashes and waves would come off the rocks. So I'm going to build that as well. So this is actually just a lot of triggers. So I put down hemispheres to get me the angle. Put down the water spouts. And then triggered all of them. This took a good hour, I think, maybe 40 minutes. You can see me quickly just adjust them to this faster, well, I wanted a shorter time frame so that it matches the train's speed. And then I deleted the hemispheres and then covered them by rocks. And then at that point, I will never be able to edit them again unless I start over. So that's what I did. So we're going to jump ahead to our next area. It's going to be Jaws. So this one was a fun one. I was surprised I was able to fit it back here. The original thought was actually to build Jaws out in the middle of the lake, but I think that was not going to work because I like the idea of hiding Jaws in the corner, and this is where we can hide like show buildings and stuff and other unseemly things. So we're going to use the splash boat, kind of put it in the kind of the shape of Jaws. And the funny thing is that this ride's kind of built like on a diagonal because it kind of just sits in the back here. And then the railroad actually gets changed again because I changed the layout for the railroad numerous of times, especially for this map, because there's a lot in this park. But the basic theming for Jaws is boathouses and warehouses and some other like Americana looking buildings. So I made a simple metal building like the one from actual Jaws. Now there is one Jaws still left on the planet that would be in Japan. I would love to go to see it once, maybe ride it once, but Jaws was a very interesting ride. Had a lot of problems, but it was a quite fascinating concept. And so I thought the splash boat was fitting because it looks like the Amity tour boats. And I don't get to use the splash boat often at all, so I decided to make this into a target ride. So because the splash boats have targets you can enable and put on objects, so that's what I'm going to do here. Then we're going to quickly build the Jaws sign, and the Jaws sign is going to be like this. The Jaws logo is kind of weird because the letters kind of smoosh together and kind of like bounce off each other. So it's actually really nice. There's the railroad change, expanded the lake a little bit, which I'm like that this extended it better because now I have a little bit more room to kind of add props and things and sharks and things. I don't know, stuff like that. So over at the back end of Jaws is the warehouse that you go into after escaping the first encounter with Jaws or Bruce. And then you go into the gasoline part where that burns up, and then you have one last attack from Bruce. So I'm trying to figure out where my spots are. My spots are not necessarily the perfect telling of Jaws, but it's pretty close to the ride. Because you'll see in the tour what I did, because the break will come up in about, I would say, in like 7 minutes. Yeah, 7 minutes? No, less than that, 4 minutes. Haha, I don't know my time. So we're going to build over here a quick little gasoline thing. No, we're going to do some of the just other environment building. So trees, rocks, docks and things. This was a cool way to kind of hide that water tower in the back. Was add the tanks, and I added some triggers for fire effects that would come close to the boat whenever the boat got near. Because this gasoline place is supposed to explode in the ride, so I kind of want to do triggers like that and have it burn out. And then I'm going to add some other details for making harbor stuff is barrels, oil containers, fishing nets. And fishing nets I use is strawberry pieces, so those are very useful. Here's our second lighthouse. This is the little dinky little highest lighthouse of Amity Island, and so we'll build that. So in the first section of the ride is a broken boat, and so I needed to mimic the splash boats. So I kind of mimicked it pretty well. I have the same color scheme, so I have the white, the blue, I have this little smokestack, and I think I'm going to add some red in it, but I added like little pieces of wreckage kind of floating there, so suggesting that this boat got eaten by Bruce, and now you're warned about it. And so that's the first encounter. So the first encounter of the ride is Bruce destroys a boat, and then you see only the fin, and then it comes up at your boat really quickly, and then you have to dive into the boathouse to kind of hide, and that's where another event would happen, and then you would go out to the gasoline thing and then fry or just actually kill Bruce. But I don't show that in my version because it was kind of hard to kind of portray. But here's Bruce. Is going to be all out of shapes. He's a little cartoony. Again, it's Parkitect. It's going to look cartoony, but it works. I like that how it's at a diagonal, and it looks like a shark to me. He kind of looks very cartoony. Again, that's fine. So actually, I built 2 of these sharks. So I blueprint him and move him to another diagonal location, because I'm also thinking on top of that is the splash boats have 2 seats on either side, so I want to make each side of the ride the similar to each guest, even though in reality it doesn't matter gameplay wise, but for me it would matter. So that was Jaws. Now we're quickly on to the last couple things. This is going to be a boat built back up in the front of the park, and this is going to be a knockoff of the boat in Disney Hollywood Studios, and that would be called the SS Down the Hatch. And I felt like I needed a boat here because it was a very empty harbor in the front most of the time, so I quickly built a boat, and this is a pretty cool looking boat. Building boats in Parkitect is a quite enjoyable thing to do now, actually, because I built a boat in Batavia Cay. Now I get to build a steamboat, and it's the proportions are out of whack, honestly, but it kind of matches the Parkitect style and the realism of what I'm trying to portray, but it looks nice. I like how it looks. So I'm just using a lot of shapes again. We got regular disc shapes for the windows, cylinders for the stacks. We got those weird vents using half hemispheres and cylinders, and then squares for most of like the cabin and the driver's house or the bridge of the boat. And then I know that the one in Disney Studios has a shop in it. I haven't built one yet. I could make this a blueprint and make it a shop if you guys want it. I could do that. So, and then the bottom of the boat's actually made of cylinders and a half hemispheres. So let's quickly go into the break and see what's up with the park. And I'll show you all the things that we've built so far. Okay, welcome to Disaster Peaks so far, and what we've accomplished in the time up so far. It's been like 12 years in game. It's been going. This is already a big build, and it's going to be another, I'm going to say, 8 hours from this standpoint onward to finish the rest of the park. So let's just quickly do a recap. So the front area, which I designed to just be a very simple, well, not simple, nothing simple with me, by the way, nothing is. So this is going to be my backlot / studio area. I'm probably going to call it Backlot. Actually, did I name it Backlot? I think I did because I was doing some zoning on my own. Yeah, I called it the Backlot. So this is the Backlot area. This is just your normal, typical sound stages. You have administration building. You got some Art Deco / facades of like a Hollywood cityscape. So that was kind of the fun. This was fun to build, honestly. Again, I'm doing some more diagonal shenanigans. So at this point, I can beat the scenario right now if I wanted to, but I'm going to hold off until I pay off said loan, because that's all I need to do is, yeah, I can just beat it. Regardless, that was a small little tangent. So the last thing I built was the little boat. This boat is a direct copy, not direct copy, it's like more of an inspirational piece of the boat that's in Echo Lake in Disney's Hollywood Studios park. I like that my park so far is like a mix between Disney Hollywood Studios, and Universal Studios. So it kind of goes from there. So this was the front area. I'm kind of go this way for the bridge that I reconstructed and the train track. The train's actually not operating at the moment because I have to reroute the layout again. Then we venture off into Amity Island, which is all Jaws themed. So again, I wanted to do some more studio shenanigans. I wanted to do suggest that there's more studio buildings kind of sprinkled around the park and used as facades and other things like that. So things that I built off camera were this boathouse with the bumper boats that kind of, I don't know, bounce around out here in the lake area. And then I added a antique shop with a simple building next to it. This actually holds just a cashier machine or ATM because I needed to add an additional shop for guests to, stay in my park longer so they can spend money. That's kind of the objective. So you can see the already existing swinging coaster is the Hurricane. I kind of kept it, didn't want to delete it. I could have deleted it, but it's a great coaster to already have. Here's my water effect. I love this effect that I added. Adds some type of dynamic energy to it. And then here's the Jaws ride up in the back. I'm glad I stuck this way back here. I was going to stick this actually in the lake, but I felt that it will look weird. So I'm glad I added the Jaws ride and using the splash boats finally for their. They kind of work as the Jaws boats from like the one from Universal Orlando and the one from Japan. So I really like that these boats work. And I think this is the first time I've ever done a splash boat in campaign play. Let me think. Yes, it is. I think it's the first time. So doing the triggers and the little targets, that's fun. And then adding little scenes. And then off camera also I built this little green screen / Amity Village type of thing. So it's for the train. So the train comes by, they see the backstage stuff. I'm treating the train as our backstage, backlot tour type of thing. So I want to focus on making more of those like backstage areas for the train to kind of see. But the train gets to see a little bit of the Jaws ride. I think there's a cut right here they can see. But that's when the train kind of stops. So the objective for the next round of time lapse is going to work on let me think here. This area is going to be Pompeii, so a volcano erupting and Roman architecture and a way to kind of dress up this coaster. Because I think one of them is called Firestorm. It kind of makes sense to make this a Roman area. So I'm going to make it Rome, up to about the end of here. So that means the train has to go under, maybe a loop around here, go under, reconnect here. I think this is going to change again too, because the plan for this area is to do Tokyo and Godzilla and King Kong, maybe like Kong versus Godzilla. But I want a Tokyo landscape, and I think I want to do a floorless coaster here, kind of like I want to build it like the Hulk coaster in Islands of Adventure. Kind of, even though that's a hyper coaster technically speaking, or a twist sit down, but a floorless works the same. I'll just make it floorless. And then over here, there's raining. Oh my gosh, rain! Very ill timing. Over here, I was prepping land for an additional area. It was going to be earthquake, and then I changed my mind because I didn't want another cityscape. And I think I'm going to do something a little bit off the books, because everything so far is disaster related. So Jaws eats people, that's a disaster. Volcano erupting, that's a disaster. Godzilla and King Kong destroying a city, that's a disaster. And I think we're going to do something that's off. I think it would work. I don't know. We'll see if it will. I want to do Wild Wild West because I just watched the movie a couple days ago, and I think I want to make the giant spider mech with a canyon, and I just got the mine train coaster, so I could do a mine train. I want to try to focus on making this mine train more intense, so either higher drops, more helixes, more bunny hills. I'm not sure. There's probably a way you can heighten the intensity. So I think I'm going to do some type of spider mech, and I'm going to move the train a little bit. This track actually is all just temporary, like especially this track here that goes across, goes against the river here. This is like dumb. Like this track is just needs to be redone. So far I think we have a direction. It's going to take another, let's see here. Let's count again. Pompeii, that's another area. Tokyo City with Godzilla, and then Wild Wild West over here in this corner. So I have 3 designated areas to kind of work on, and I expect each of them to take 4 to 6 hours each. Maybe I might be overestimating if I'm quick about it. Yeah, Pompeii is our next location. So, yeah. Let's get on to building said Pompeii. Okay, on to the next section of Disaster Studios. We're going to quickly work on the dueling coaster that was in the back. This is the Maelstrom / Firestorm coaster. And this is going to be our Pompeii volcano area. So this is going to be where Roman architecture has to come in and all things like that. I'm going to quickly state the idea of this mountain actually changed a couple times. So originally I was going to build some type of like temple that the coaster station was going to be. And then the volcano was going to be set way far back as a miniature diorama / forced perspective type of thing. And that did not pan out. It looked so bad. I was so not liking it. I was like, oh man, I don't like this at all. So I went the Matterhorn route and just built a giant volcano on top of the station with a giant show building with a dodgems in the back to kind of house another ride. And I think this worked out better in the long run because it has this very picturesque mountain. It's off the lake, and you get to see it from across the lake, I think, if you were looking at it from a guest view. And I like that there's an interaction with the track that does the first overbank turn with the overbank turn into the first new section of the launch coaster. I like this better. It looks better. It just feels better. And you'll see more of it in the end of this video. But we're going to build some Greek-inspired, Roman-inspired buildings. You can see that I put down some white squares first. That was kind of like placeholders to kind of figure out what I wanted. Kind of where buildings were supposed to be built. And then I deleted a couple and then quickly built one out of pillars, shapes. The door is made of crates, and the handle is a vase or a vase. So that's a very quick way to make doors that are custom without actually using doors. So that was fun. And then the windows are actually made of pillars kind of stuck together. These are the medieval pillars, by the way. And the roofs are used the adventure pieces. Those are the adventure temple pieces. They look like tile roofing for me, so I kind of use them. And this is a way to save up on pieces, because I would normally use is cylinders to suggest other tiles, but this is a quick way to do it if you're not into the mood of, you know, placing individual shapes. So this is just a way to kind of break up that method. So I just use those temple pieces. So also the coaster changed color. So the coaster went from a blue and a red to a red and an orange to kind of match the volcano lava aspect. And then we quickly went on to build some restaurants, because every land has a food establishment to serve the guests, because I don't want the guests walking all the way back to the front. That would be really bad for customer service, because you would be tired even go to the restaurant. So I built one here. I think I have a name for it. I think I call it the Roman Feast. Oh, I should mention, I made a park map for this. I actually took a picture of the park, brought it into paint.net and made a map, so the map will be in the description below, or I can tell you where to find it. I'll probably post it. Yeah, I'm going to post it all over social media once this park is live. So you can go grab it and get a park map. You can see all the little titles of all the restaurants and rides that I've made. It's actually a really cool way to kind of sell the idea that this is a working amusement park, and it's more like a theme park. So we're going to jump ahead to do our first ever marquee. I haven't done custom signage in a long time, especially in the campaign levels. So I wanted to make a Pompeii sign, so it would be a temple based with a little volcano on it, and it's just going to say the word Pompeii. I think the ride itself is called Pompeii Eruption, is the full title name of the coasters. And I actually labeled each coaster. I called one Pompeii Track A and Pompeii Track B, just so that I know which one would break down. It would tell me which one broke down. So it's kind of just a better labeling method, if you want to call it. So there you go. This is Pompeii and the little volcano kind of erupting. And then I added some, lava leaking off the side of it, which makes no sense, but it's whimsical. It looks neat. And it kind of catches your eye. And then I made some fire pillars. I don't know what they're called, actually. They have names for them, probably. I wouldn't know. And then we're going to quickly jump to the next area. So after I finished Pompeii, I needed to fill in an empty spot between Pompeii and Tokyo City, which will be our Godzilla. So I decided to build 2 more sound stages, so we're up to 5 sound stages total for this park. So the studio has 5. And I decided to call this area Prop Warehouse. This is where all the props are going to be that are made for the studio and used in movies and all that cool stuff. Quickly, I want to tell you how I built this diagonal pathway. I found out that instead of using curbs to get rid of fences on paths, because there's a little dot that happens, use the curved walls, like the curved walls for the curved roofs. You put those in the ground, and it hides the fences completely, and there's no like fence or curb that pops on top. I forgot that wall is the perfect thing to use, because I learned this from Pierre a couple years ago. I didn't think to use it, and so I used it in this round. Then over here is going to be our next restaurant. This is going to be our disaster snacks. So I wanted to mess around with another custom sign. So I'm going to make some chevrons, kind of like your warning symbol, and then some red borders, kind of like I'm mimicking the studio tour from Disney Hollywood Studios. RIP, rest in peace, because that's gone now, because there's no longer a studio tour. It's now Galaxy's Edge. So I think this was a kind of a homage to it. I actually do another homage to it later on, you'll see. But it was kind of my starting off. Then I had some blinking lights to give some animation character. And there you go, disaster snacks. I think it's just a pretzel and a soft drink stand, yep. And then I needed to figure out how to use a magic carpet ride, because I didn't want to build a Arabian area, so I decided to do an Arabian set with a green screen, suggesting this is a movie set. It kind of works, actually. Honestly, if you were like having trouble theming something, I think green screens is your answer because it kind of just sells the idea like, oh, this is a movie set. It doesn't have to be a fully themed area. So that's what I did. I did a green screen and a thing. And then on the railroad side, because I had to move the railroad a little bit, I actually had to move stations and stuff. I made another little green screen / stage area and did some space props. So there's a rocket, a little bit of terrain out of roofs, and then some alien plants that I'm using from the fantasy pack. And then the shelving actually for the props outside next to the soundstage. Oh, well, I'll quickly tell you. Those were scaffolding. So we're jumping on to the next place. Like I said before, we're going quick because there's a lot here. So once I got the prop works warehouse situated, I had to go build the coaster for Tokyo City, and this is where be our Godzilla. And so this coaster is going to be a floorless, and I'm going to mimic the Incredible Hulk coaster from Islands of Adventure. So you can do incline launches with the LSMs. So I did that. So the train launches out into a dive loop, takes a left turn into a diagonal set of oh shoot, I forgot what the names are. Cobra rolls, there we go, just remembered. And then into a couple helixes and into a corkscrew and then back to the station. So it's kind of like it's a homage to Incredible Hulk. And I like how it interacts with the lake and the diagonal paths of the prop warehouse. But I also had to figure out where to put that train too. So this is where the fun part is to actually build the city. So you can tell I put down a whole bunch of white bricks, white cubes everywhere, because I'm trying to visualize what the city should look like. Instead of just looking at an empty map, because sometimes your brain doesn't, or my brain doesn't, I just don't see it. So I have to visually put it down and then kind of go from there. So I wanted to make some proper streets for Tokyo, kind of cover up some of the corners, because it's a square-based game. Just wanted to kind of break that up and make it more natural looking. And then I built my first building. This is going to be a restroom, which is off to the tan building off to the right. And then the entrance to Godzilla Rampage, which is the coaster's name, is going to be like a simple skyscraper building, but I needed to disguise the bridge over the railroad. And this was a way to do it, because honestly, if you quickly looked at the park, you wouldn't know where the crossing would be. And that's kind of the point, is to hide it. Yeah, honestly, that's the point, is to hide it. Like, honestly, like, if you think about Indiana Jones at Disneyland, you don't realize that you're walking half a mile already outside the park. You walk down the corridors of the temple, you pass some ruins, caves, you end up into the rotunda, then into the safety spiel room, and then into loading. So you don't realize how far you are actually outside the park. You're actually outside the berm. I kind of want to do the same feeling for this ride, because Godzilla himself, the big gigantic statue that I have to build, is built on top of the show building of the coaster. And then the skyscrapers are supposed to obscure the view of Godzilla so that you have this sense of, oh my gosh, he's gigantic, he's looming right over the buildings, he's about to attack Tokyo City. That's kind of the idea I'm trying to portray to the guest. So over here we are going to I'm going to quickly put in the symbol for the ride. So I did Godzilla Rampage, and I was going to make a customized Godzilla face, but it wasn't working out with the shapes, so I just went a simple route, and I just did the symbol of Monarch. So if you're not into the lore of Godzilla, there's a company called Monarch, especially the new Godzilla, and it's the symbol Monarch. It's like a weird, I think it's supposed to be a butterfly, actually. Yeah, Monarch is a butterfly. Huh, I just realized that. Alright then. So, when it comes to Godzilla, he is made of spheres and cylinders and cones, and this was my first attempt at a Godzilla. I'm glad I kept Godzilla in this map versus Sakura Gardens, because I was going to make it for Sakura Gardens, but I didn't feel like there was enough Godzilla content to make it into a full-fledged theme park. It makes more sense to make it into a more of a land than a full-fledged theme park, so here we go. So I'm just getting the shape of Godzilla's head. It's like his head is like a crocodile / T-Rex head. Because he's got a very big head, but his snout is very short, and his eyes are very beady. So this Godzilla is kind of a mixture between the new Godzilla and the one from the 90s, because I think the one from the 90s is very iconic. So he's just kind of looming over the building. I'm building some stilts and stuff, suggesting that it's made of, well, it's being supported by those. And again, I'm not sure what materials you would build this Godzilla out of. It has to be something that's somewhat weatherproof and can last a long time in the sun and stuff like that. So when it came to making his spikes, that was actually more of a hard thing to do, because I wanted to use cubes, but cubes don't get skinny enough, so I had to use discs, and kind of size them up a little bit. It kind of worked out. Godzilla was originally, I wanted Godzilla to breathe actually fire, but his head in the position actually aims directly at the chain lift, or at the launch lift of the floorless coaster, so it didn't work out. So I was going to do that. Over here actually was a little bit of me being lazy, but also solving a problem. So the problem was I was getting bored making buildings, and so I found a way to make these flats of the skyline, and then suggest that this is another set, because in the Godzilla movies from the 90s and the 80s, they actually built miniature cities and have a guy in a suit dressed up as Godzilla romping through and destroying it or battling another monster. So I thought, oh, that's perfect. We can do this for the Godzilla. So this is me being lazy, but also solving another problem and doing storytelling at the same time. So I think it kind of works out, because there's like this transition between your big 3D buildings to your little flats and stuff like that. And so I'm building little cars out of cubes, different colors. We got the street, we got this little dinky little Tokyo city. And then to kind of top it off, to kind of pull in all that storytelling, is I add a camera and a truck and a little like soundstage slash director's area for the director to be like, okay, action. I could have sold it more by putting an entertainer there. Oh, actually, I could do that later. Yeah. If you guys get into the map, I suggest you take an entertainer dressed up like the dinosaur, the raptor, and just plop them in and see what happens. Make a path and have it kind of tromp around. It would actually work, honestly. You should do that. I'm making myself laugh. Oof. Okay, so back to telling what's going on. So there's the camera. I use some cable pieces from the sci-fi pack to kind of suggest it's plugged into a generator or something, or some other lights. And then, yeah, I really like this section. This actually sells the point to me really well. Yeah, I like it a lot. This looks cool. And then I also added on the coaster an actual a photo spot, or a what is it called? Photo spot. And I'm going to call it a photo spot, where it takes a photo of you on the ride and you can then purchase it. I added that. So after the Tokyo area was finished, I had one more area to fill out, and I know I said in the break I was going to do a Wild Wild West, and I crumbled at that because it was way too hard to figure that out. So I opted in to figure out to decorate the train station for the train ride, because this is near the front of the park. And so this is where the real homage to this studio backlot tour from Disney Hollywood Studios would actually be introduced. So I changed the color of the trains to match the tram colors, and then I looked on Google for some of the station or the entrance of the ride. It's like a brick building plus a little warehouse, like a metal warehouse. I'm not sure, maybe a factory. Who knows what it is? But I wanted to make an actual station for the tour to kind of give it that look. So I did some chevrons, some caution tape, some I think those are just hanger doors for the garage doors, basically. We got just some regular brick detailing, regular pitched roofs, stuff like that. And then I did some diagonal path shenanigans, again, to break up the grid. If you're brave enough to do that, I suggest you do so. But it's not the end of the world if you don't do it, honestly. But it does help with the map's aesthetic. And going 45 degrees really helps with this game's aesthetic and breaks up the grid, as usual. So I'm adding some detailing of gingerbreading on the house, making it look like a warehouse. I matched the color tones of all the reference pictures that I have found. And it kind of does a nice transition actually, because we're going from this Art Deco buildings from the studio Backlot area to a more of a factory area, and then that means I can transition to the Tokyo. But the cool thing about the transition between Tokyo City and this area, which is now going to be called the disaster zone, is that the bridge is my transition. So the transitions in this parks have been pretty good lately, but sometimes they're really hard to deal with. So I also found it was very appropriate to add a little tram homage. So I'm going to build a tram from the studio tour, and in the original ride there was a tram that was breaking through a building, and so I thought I can do it here too. So I'm just going to stick it where the queue line is a little bit, breaking through the brick wall and a diagonal, and build this vehicle right at the edge of the path. This would be a perfect opportunity for a photo spot, to be honest. This is be perfect. So a lot of 45-degree angle cubes and cylinders, and I add some lights to it. Now the guests do walk through it because the path goes all the way up, but I don't care. I want aesthetics more than actual mechanically proper. Again, guests walk through all my scenery all the time. So if you can get over that hurdle, you'll be fine. It will look good. It actually present pretty well, actually. But yeah, there's the tram. It's a perfect spot to take a picture. And then quickly on to our last coaster of the build, and I'm going to use a Giga coaster, but I wanted to take my hand and build my own like Intamin Megalite, kinda. I know that you can use the hydraulic coaster more properly for its track type, but I had a Giga coaster to use, so I wanted to do a simple, very low, not that high chain lift, and then into a couple helixes and drops, and kind of have this interaction with the path in the train. I kind of wanted to do that, and kind of just fill in this area. Again, I have this very small area to fill, and that was the challenge. And so I think this Megalite actually worked out really well. I don't have any gripes with the coaster. It's actually a really well-performing coaster, to be honest. All my coasters are priced at $12 each, so I'm making buco bucks at this point. You can see at the corner that I'm making, what is it, $64,000? Yeah, I have $64,000. There's more now. I have like way more money. So over here was a test to change the terrain that didn't work out, and then I built myself an actual service shed with a transfer track. And now this building for the coasters would be modeled after the original Disaster the ride at Universal Studios Orlando. That was the ride that was like the earthquake ride. So I wanted to do the same here, kind of pay homage to that as well. So I kind of picked the same brick color, which is like this dark red. And it has this like atrium in the beginning, right before you get to the actual queue of the inside of the building. So I wanted to do that and kind of make this a factory. So that's why it was kind of awesome that the entrance to the train ride or the studio tour matches that type of factory aesthetic, and so does this. So this is kind of like my disaster zone / earthquake area, but it's not really labeled as that. It's just kind of my hodgepodge of stuff. And again, this was me at the end of my build. I was like, I don't know what to do with this area. I'm just going to quickly put something together to kind of match my disaster theme. And it worked out, actually. To be honest, I like this area more than some areas of like the Amity Island and Pompeii. My favorite areas of my build this round would be Backlot Tour is pretty cool, the studio part, the disaster zone's my favorite, and then Tokyo City. Those are like my favorite areas that I've built. But there you go, it says Disaster the ride. I honestly would believe that there would be a pre-show in that little building. There's also a restroom set here too. Then I added some water tower for more factory aesthetic. And then the TAM building that actually houses the train and the coaster station changes a little bit to give it more of a facade look. Because again, I'm trying to suggest that this is a running studio, so they made a facade and then went from there. Yeah, we're actually at the end of this video so far, guys. Wow, we made it this far. Hope everybody's held on tight for how fast we had to go through this. quick remarks. There's a smokestack I added, some more ruined buildings. There's rocks everywhere suggesting that there's an earthquake. All the trees are somewhat dying or dead, either or. I quickly added a quick restaurant and a fake facade to hide the depot building because that was a kind of appropriate thing to do. And I think I called this shop I called it Bubble Tea Disaster. Kind of a weird name for it, but it works. But yeah, I'm going to leave you guys here for the last couple seconds here. Any other remarks? I don't think so. As I just watch myself build real quickly. No, I think I built a gasoline truck that's leaking, so that actually catches on fire. You'll see that in the tour. And then some other close-ups. But yeah, there's a lot going on. I'll see you guys in the tour. See you over there. Okay, welcome to the premiere of Disaster Studios. So there's a lot to get into how big this park is, but what you saw in all the time lapse, this is, I would say, the most detail-oriented park I've built so far in the campaign. We have at least 5 more scenarios to go to. So this is the backlot area / no, I think I just called it the studio backlot. I think I labeled, maybe not that button, oops. Where is it? Yeah, studio backlot. So I've labeled all the zones, all that good stuff. So this is kind of was our starting area to figure out what I wanted to theme. It's kind of my jumping off point, getting my bearings. I do like this area a lot. It's very well detailed and just there's a lot going on, especially with the facade work that's going on with this building and then this building over here. These were like posters here to say to the guests that these are the movies that we're touching on. So Jaws, Godzilla, Pompeii, all those pretty disastrous movies. And then I'm glad I kept the train actually into this campaign because I was originally thinking about getting rid of it, but that was kind of my thought. But I'm glad it stays. So we venture off to the first bridge crossing of the river from the lake into Amity Island. So this is our Jaws themed area. So this area actually didn't get a lot of changes besides maybe this show building / sound stage with the hurricane station, and it's kind of like Amity's village, something like that, and then a lighthouse with a cool water effect here, and then a jumper. But the kind of the crown of this land is the Jaws itself. I was actually quite surprised I was able to stick this guy in the back here, especially filling up this entire corner. And had to reroute the train, but that was necessary. But this one's a fun little... this is actually one of my favorite uses of the splash boat, because I don't use this type of ride in this game at all. Like, this is a cool way to do it. You're kind of just like, yeah, look, it reminds me of a Jaws ride. But yeah, this is perfect timing too. So the boat's going to come out and it's going to trigger some effects. Yeah, that fire, like oil spills and all that stuff, which is cool. Oh, yes, this is good. So yeah, this is Jaws. Then after we do that, we venture off to Pompeii, which was a cool way to kind of decorate the already existing dueling coaster that was already put back here. So building this was just a fantastical thing to do. It kind of reminded me of doing like Islands of Adventure stuff. About perfect timing with the firework explosion, which I don't think would ever happen in a real theme park. Honestly, that's like way too close to track. So I think OSHA would be very mad at this position, but this is Parkitect, and this is also Happy Co. So we don't really care about safety. We only care about immersion. So here's our little Roman / Greek village. Kind of the same. I wish I did a little bit better work on this, but I was kind of losing steam in this area particularly, but I think it works out pretty okay. And it has to rain, but this is the perfect time actually. We can see the coloring and the lighting, especially in the rain, how bright this thing is. Yeah, this is pretty cool. So this is a 2-train operation, I said before. So this actually works out to do. Yeah, it works out really well actually, especially with the timing, because if you don't do the timing right, it kind of throws off the train's dueling mode. So I know that Silver had a problem on his playthrough, and I found a way to fix that. and I told you in the time lapse that I found a way. So I'll just remind you again. It was just a timing issue on the trains. I think I made the trains wait 50 seconds each. Yeah, it just because it needs to wait for those trains to arrive at the block breaks here, to then time itself to end up on those new block breaks. So basically that's what it does. So yeah, here's the Pompeii area, kind of pretty cool. We'll venture off into the next area. This area was kind of a in-between area that I kind of wanted to fill in because I felt I didn't feel like the Tokyo area that I built later, it wasn't big enough to fill up the entire space. So I made a new area called Prop Warehouse. Kind of did more sound stages to kind of do that, and then I wanted to play off with the green screen effect thing again because I did it earlier with Amity Island for the hurricane station, so this was kind of fun to do. And this, just testing out some new signage for like disaster snacks. I think kind of pulls in the whole studio look together because we're still reminded that we're in a studio setting. And it's a fun way to use all the props, honestly, because this is fun to do. It's like every prop in the game. Might as well use them all. This is the perfect time to do it because it's a prop. It's a prop warehouse. So we venture off to the most expansive land so far is our Tokyo City, which is our Godzilla Rampage Godzilla thing. Well, Godzilla Rampages is the coaster. So there's our gigantic Godzilla. I honestly think Universal would probably do this. I think they would. But it's a cool concept nonetheless to kind of say that we can make a land themed around Godzilla. Because I said before I wanted to make Godzilla for Sakura Gardens and it didn't work out. But it ended up here. So whatever plans I make, like blue skying, and I shelve them, they eventually end up in another video. And here it is. Here's another Godzilla. And so here's the roller coaster Godzilla Rampage, which is kind of a Incredible Hulk kind of knockoff coaster, which I kind of like. I like the idea that I could do in an incline launch like this for the floorless. So this is actually a really cool idea. So I want to wait and see if this train comes by because it's a cool idea. I just wish I'd had some better thoughts and ideas to decorate this, but I didn't want to make it a cannon because it wouldn't make any sense. So kind of just kept it plain. Yeah, I'm just kind of, sometimes ideas just don't stick, so I just have to fill them in. But I do like that the train kind of cuts through the land, kind of helps with that. Here comes the coaster. We go into the dive loop, into our Cobra roll, and then most of the layout is just helixes and one corkscrew. But it feels kind of pretty good, and I like that it's built, most of it's on a diagonal, which I do like. And the color matches Godzilla's kind of bluish, grayish tones. So, and also over here was kind of me being lazy, but also in a way of solving a theming issue. I was kind of getting bored making buildings. So then doing a cutout of buildings, kind of like billboards, like a set, and then doing miniatures like they do in the actual Godzilla movies. So that kind of helped tell more of the story of the Godzilla / movie studio aesthetic. And I do like this camera setup I made. This was fun to build. And then the last place was to put the turbulor in and kind of do some like Japanese architecture just to kind of tie it in. And then we venture off to the last area that kind of had the most changes, because I said in the break that I was going to do some type of Wild Wild West, and I just didn't pan out. I thought about it and then looked at some of like the intricate parts of it, and building a spider out of shapes would have been not the best thing to do. Maybe with some mods that would have been done, but with vanilla shapes it probably wouldn't be good. So I decided just to do a normal like disaster / quick area. So it's just kind of just a very typical, more studio-esque thing. So this is more resemblance of Disaster the Ride and Universal, and a little bit of Disaster Canyon from Disney Studios. And I also wanted to experiment with making a intimate megalite, but I used the Giga Coaster as that template. And I think it actually was, I'm surprised I was actually able to stick a coaster in here in this limited space. Especially with the train in the way, it was kind of hard to figure that out, but I liked it. And then the train ride needed a station, and that station was going to be like a studio backlot tour type of aesthetic. So I kind of ripped off the station from the studio backlot tour from Disney Hollywood Studios, and now that's rest in peace. It's gone now. It's Star Wars Land. So I wanted to kind of pay tribute to it and kind of mix the parks together. So I have a mix of Islands Adventure, Hollywood Studios, Orlando, and Hollywood, and Disney Studios. I just have a mix of everything, which I do appreciate and like. So this is what we have: a full Disaster Studios now open to the public with $125,000 in the bank and 1,193 guests roaming. So this is actually pretty cool. The thing I like to also show you would be the backlots, or the zone. So everything was zoned as it starts raining, just to make my life easier, especially with employees. And it kind of sells the effect that this is actually a working legit park. So it's always nice to do that. So the last thing I need to do actually is pay off a loan, I think. Yes, let's go find it, because I think it's just going to be the end of, here it is. It's literally $1,000 because I was very quick about it. So we should be able to, oh, we have to wait 3 weeks. Good thing I can push the fast forward button, but we also can get out of this rain. So we'll do, actually, while we wait for this thing to be done, we can do 2 POVs for the 2 coasters that are mine. So we'll do a POV of Godzilla Rampage, and I'm trying to think of which position, but we can also see the insides of it, how far the station is. But yeah, it kind of just kind of holds up this area. So let's quickly, yes, do it from view from here, and then fast forward. Oh, here we go. So yeah, Godzilla Rampage, one of the more exciting coasters in Disaster Studios. Oh, not a full train because it was raining earlier. And there we go, into the Cobra Roll, which is actually quite a large Cobra Roll. I would so ride this. This just too much fun. And then this janky corkscrew because it's all on diagonal. They do a nice loop around of this little miniature town, city, and then into the brake run. And there's no, well, technically speaking, the not the roundhouse, the maintenance shed would be in here, technically speaking, because it's a more big, gigantic show building. So let's go find the Disaster the Ride. Oh, perfect timing. So this one was fun because I like the idea of making it as a Marisha with the path, so I decided to do a ditch and kind of go into a tunnel. It kind of sells the disaster moment of earthquake cracking and destruction of rubble, all that cool stuff. And then having the train and coaster kind of zip around the water, because the water was a way to kind of use that as a element. And I could have honestly gotten rid of the lake, but I think the lake was kind of the main focus of this park. That also what reminded me of Islands of Adventure. That's kind of why I leaned on more of this studio. I would just call this a studio park. Studio / Islands of Adventure type of thing. So that's kind of what this reminded me of, this lake. But yeah, let's quickly just win this map. Come on, I want to win the map now. Let me just show you what nighttime looks like. Nighttime looks pretty typical. It's your normal lighting that Parkitect Vanilla can do. So let's quickly get to the end here. I don't know what else to tell you guys, but yeah, this one was I was surprised by my abilities that I was able to fill up this entire park, because I had some backup plans just to fill half the park up and just call it even, but I kind of got into the mood and continued to develop the park some more, and I'm glad I did. Yay, we win the map! This map that took, I want to say 35 hours at the most, maybe a 40-hour build. But yeah, here's all the confetti in the main studio backlot. Let's quickly save here. I'm going to actually change it now because I want to say finished, because this is a done map. Finished, save, There we go. And then let's go to the main menu and see what our trophy is. And I think I know what it is. It's the house that's in the center of the lake. Is our map, or is our trophy. Yep, there it is. There's our trophy. Bingo. And do we actually get a reveal of the next map? Oh, we do. So that would be Sheer Cliffs. Okay. Well, I'm going to spoil something. I know Robo Park's up here, and then Zalgonio's over here. So we're at the end here. So that, wait. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh yeah, I have literally 4 more maps. Well, the next time we're going to do is we're going to do Silica Slopes. That's the next map. That's what we're going to do. But I want to thank you guys for watching and, I don't know, dealing with this long video, because this is going to be, I think, one of my longer ones, especially how long this park is. But there is a park map you guys can actually download for Disaster Studios, and the park will be on the workshop as usually for you guys to explore and take inspiration from. I want to thank my Patreons for the continued support. If you guys want to support me on Patreon, you can. It's the link in the description below. And all in all, this was a fun build, and I'm excited to do some smaller parks in the next couple maps, because this one was a really long one. I think I'm going to do like a fairy tale slash gnome like village, maybe a fairyland maybe, because it's very hilly in this map and it's smaller and it's kind of that European, so I'm probably going to do that. But yeah, Silica Slopes is my next map, and we'll see you guys over there. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.